Dear viewer, dear student, and my colleague teachers, at this juncture, I want us now to handle Section A of KCSE History and Government, the year 2022. So, when we begin by looking at Section A, I had already made some very key points on the expectations of the examiner as you answer those questions, or even as you set as an examiner the questions for history and government. Just a few things to highlight. Number one, Section A normally tackles questions that are simple structured, or what somebody can simply call the recall questions. And the terminologies that we use to examine Section A could be terms like give, name, mention, state, identify, list, outline, and these terminologies simply require the students to give us very brief statements and to the point without actually narrating stories within as you give us your answers. And then also in Section A, we are going to understand that the section purely sets questions that require very, very finer details from the student as they give their response. I normally say that for a student to do well in Section A, then they must pay attention to small details, like you're going to see in a short while, small details. So the entire section contains 17 questions. The entire section contains 17 questions, and most of these questions are basically either a 1-mark question or a 2-mark question, and the total marks in this section is 25. It is imperative to understand that you must answer all the questions that are provided for you in Section A. Now, I mentioned in my previous presentations that the reason why the examiner tests 17 items in Section A is because of the number of topics that we have in both Paper 1 and Paper 2. And for your information, Paper 1 has a total of 17 topics. Paper 2 has a total of 17 topics. So basically that tells the student that every single topic is examinable in a paper. Therefore, if a paper is well balanced, you'll realize that perhaps question 1 should be drawn from the first topic, that is Introduction in History and Government Form 1 work. Then number 17, question 17, should be drawn from the 17th topic of paper 1. For example, paper 1 or paper 2, where in paper 1 we are talking about public revenue and expenditure as our very last topic in paper 1, and then in paper 2 we are talking about electoral process and the functions of governments in other parts of the world. So when you have that idea, when you have that knowledge, then you will be very, very well equipped to prepare adequately as you sit for your history and government paper. And therefore, this means that the students must be able to do away with attitude issues. If you have an attitude issue towards a particular topic, you're going to basically affect how you are going to perform in that exam, because the topics that are tested in Section A, the 17 of them, again, they are the same topics that will feature in Section B and Section C. So if you have an issue with a particular topic, you're going to meet it in Section A, you shall have lost some marks there. Let's say the examiner decides to bring a 2-mark question from it, or even 3-mark question. You shall have already lost your 3 marks in Section A. You go to Section B, maybe the examiner has chosen to test questions that total to 15, again in Section B. Total 18 gone. You go to Section C, maybe again another topic that you have a problem with has been tested there. So you have your 15, those are 30 plus 3 or even 4, 34. So basically you have locked yourself out of posing any good score in this particular exam. And therefore, as I begin, section A is basically the determinant of the score that a student gets in a history and government paper. That without you performing well in section A, there is no way your section B and section C will save you. I normally say that if you want to know whether you're going to score at least 80% and above in a history and examination paper, then you should get yourself at least 20 over 25. From the experience I've had in teaching and examining history, once I mark a student's paper and I mark section A, whatever score they get in section A, I can be able to use the experience that I've had to give a rough estimate of what this student is likely to get as their overall performance in the history and government paper. Therefore, as I now begin, please take very keen note of those pertinent issues that I've raised, and I hope that it will be able to benefit you as we move along. So now, to this paper, History and Government Paper 2, KCSE 2022. Question 1, the examiner tested, as you can see on your screen, give the meaning of economic history. That was the question, give the meaning of economic history. Now, remember I mentioned that this section handles questions that require the students to pay attention to small details. Students to pay attention to small details. Like now, what is the small detail of this question? The small detail is this word economic history. Why economic history as a small detail? Remember, history has 3 branches. History has 3 branches. And the first branch of history, we can talk about social history. The second branch, we talk about political history. Then we have economic history. So the examiner did not want the student to just identify maybe one branch of history. They went ahead and asked the students now to give the meaning of this particular branch of history. So even as we answer the branch that is on your screen, then you should be able now to prepare yourself for the subsequent, maybe questions that can be tested much later. That tomorrow they will ask you the meaning of social history, or the other day they will ask you the meaning of political history. So for now, economic history, simply defined as the study of how wealth is generated and distributed in the society. Or you could alternatively say it deals with how people earn their livelihoods, the means of livelihood of the people, or economic occupations, for example, hunting, gathering, cultivation, fishing, trading, mining, livestock keeping, beekeeping, and etc. So we only required you to give us one definition. If you write those two, the examiner will only mark for you the first point. So that is it, the meaning of economic history. Next time, please revise, go back to your notes, peruse your Form 1 work. This question is drawn from the topic Introduction to History and Government. Go back to your notes and now find out what is how is social history defined? How is political history defined? So that will be assignment in your preparation. And you'll realize that as I tackle these questions, I'll always be challenging you to now take your time. And that's the essence of having such an online forum, that we give you a reason to go to your books and bring out more content outside what we are discussing here for your safety in answering the history and government questions. Then number 2, we talk about state 2 theories on the origins of early human beings. This is drawn from the topic early man, topic 2, Form 1 work, early man. And this question, remember I mentioned when I was doing the introductory part in the first recording of this paper 2, I mentioned that the topic early man is basically a paper 2 topic. But you'll find that sometimes there are questions that can be drawn from this topic and tested in paper 1. And I mentioned that this is an example of it. the theories is an area that can be tested in both paper 1 and paper 2. So in this question, I'm going to speak of something that is very, very critical for you to understand. Now, in paper 2, the answers that were provided for include, as you can see on your screen, the theory of creation that states that human beings were created by God, or the biblical theory, or the Quranic theory. The second one, the evolution theory, talks about, man evolving from primates. Can also be called scientific or Darwinism. Number 3, that we have myths or traditional stories that explain how human beings came into being, or somebody can simply call them oral traditions. Now, this is provided for in paper 2. Sometimes back, I think around 2018, 2019, the same question was tested in paper 1. And as we marked the scripts of the examiner during, the coordination and all that, we agreed as paper 1 examiners that when it comes to these theories, the theories that explain the origin of man, we only allow creation theory, not biblical or Quranic. So in paper 1, you stick to creation theory. Or number 2, evolution theory. There's nothing like scientific or Darwinism. Number 3, you talk about mythical or traditional, mythical or traditional theory. Now, please mark this. For purposes of being safe, it doesn't matter whether paper 2 acknowledges all these synonyms to mean the same thing as whatever they're trying to say. For you to be safe, please, if you are asked about the theories that explain the origin of early human beings, just write for the examiner Roman 1, creation theory, Roman 2, evolution theory, Roman 3, mythical theory. And it is only mythical that we allow you to have a second synonym like the traditional theory. But remember, again, in history, there is nothing like stroking your answers. You have to choose one of those words, then you give us as your response. And the reason why I'm saying that you're not allowed to stroke your answer is because anything that comes after a stroke, as we mark, is regarded as a second response. So therefore, you simply stick to, you choose just one option. So please don't be confused when it comes to writing these theories, because paper 2 has opened it up that you can have those other names. But for purposes of uniformity and being very clear, I ask that we stick to the 3 that I have mentioned. Now, question number 3, identify 2 inventions that promoted agrarian revolution in Britain. Identify 2 inventions that promoted agrarian revolution in Britain. These are questions that is drawn from topic 3 form 1 work. That is topic 3 form 1 work, that is development of agriculture. And there are so many things that we talk about in that particular topic. So many. You talk about agriculture in Egypt, Mesopotamia, agrarian revolution in Britain, agrarian revolution in America, food situation in third world countries. But now this examiner went for the inventions that were brought about during the agrarian revolution. They are as follows on your screen: the mechanical reaper, the invention of the fertilizer, horse-drawn hoe, not ox, it is horse that were drawn by the horses. Then we have selective breeding of livestock, the seed drill, then we have the mechanical thresher. And as usual, I would challenge you that please, now in your revision as you follow through this lesson, just rush to your form 1 work, open chapter 3, and attach the name of the inventor of this particular invention against whatever is provided here. So like now, you will go and find from your book, mechanical reaper, who invented it. Then you write the name there. Number 2, who invented the use of fertilizers. Number 3, who invented the horse-drawn hoe. And you proceed like that up to the mechanical thresher. The reason why I'm saying this is because maybe in your next paper you're going to meet, you will not be asked a similar question to this one. The examiner will ask you, give the name of the person who invented the mechanical reaper. So therefore, my dear student, it's important that you also take that initiative. You take that initiative to, go and find out more details about such questions that we are discussing right now, because it's not just about KCSE 2022. This revision is for posterity, so that now you're going to use this platform to broaden your thinking, broaden how you're looking at such questions, and then now you move a step further and, get to your books and get to understand those other details. We have question number 4. Give the main reason for the coming of the early visitors to the East African coast. Now, this question is drawn from the topic contacts between East African coast and the outside world. This is topic 6 from 1 work. And I want to make a few points. I want to put a few points across. 1, this is a main question. This is a main question. And in history and government, anytime we ask you to give the main, let's say the main reason, your response should be 1 point. If you write for us 2 points, as an examiner, I will ignore those 2 points that you have given, even if one of those points is correct, because you shall have gone against the rubrics of the examination. So therefore, we are being asked about the main reason for the coming of the early visitors. Mark the word main reason, mark the word early visitors. The answer is they came to trade. Next time, I might choose to ask you to give the main reason for the coming of the Arabs, or I can choose to ask you to give the main reason for the coming of the Portuguese. So please, again, write this down. Give the main reason for the coming of the Arabs to the East African coast as your assignment. Number 2, give the main reason for the coming of the Portuguese to the East African coast, again as your second assignment from this particular area. And the reason why I'm doing this, dear students and my colleague teachers, is to help our learners, to help our students to develop a sense of responsibility, that you can be responsible and, take such initiatives to, do something extra. Do something extra that can help you to be accountable as you prepare for your examination. Number 5, we have identified 2 types of trade, which is tested from the topic trade in Form 2 work. That is our first topic in Form 2 work, trade. We've been asked about the types of trade. The types of trade include local, regional, international. Local, regional, international. Maybe again, as a matter of helping you to now do something extra, ask yourself, why would a trade be categorized as a local trade? And why would a trade be categorized as regional or international? Go and look at what parameters or what characteristics does one use to place a particular trade as, let's say, local or regional or international. Then after doing that, go a step further and identify examples of trades that took place that were categorized under these 3 categories. Please don't confuse types of trade and methods of trade. We have types of trade, the 3 that we have, you can see on your screen. Then we have methods of trade, where we talk about currency trade or barter trade. But you'll always find that, like now in this question, the student knows very well that we have 3 types of trade. But because the examiner has asked about 2, then their first memory rushes to, their first thought rushes to give the response of the methods of trade, because remember we have 2 methods. So they see 2 types of trade. First thought, barter, currency. It would have been a different case if I took this question and brought it to section B and said, identify 3 types of trade. All of them would simply know, the 3 types of trade include local, regional, international. But the moment you tell them 2, then they are tempted to bring into discussion, the two that I've mentioned, barter and currency. Number 6, name the invention that was made by the Wright brothers. Name the invention that was made by the Wright brothers. Remember, this is from the topic Development of Industry, Chapter 4, Form 2 work, Development of Industry. Development of industry. And we have different inventions in this particular area. We have different inventions. So we have inventions in the field of agriculture, the field of medicine, the field of, talk about science, the field of science, or even other inventions. And even the inventions in the field of industry itself. So this question is asking the invention that was made by the two Wright brothers. Remember, we have the Orville Wright and Wilbur Wright. The answer is aeroplane or the aircraft. So again, for purposes of being very clear, just go back to your topic 4 Form 2 work and see or bring out the other inventions that were put across by different inventors during the Industrial Revolution or Scientific Revolution. We proceed to number 7. Highlight one early form of communication. Highlight one early form of communication. Now, this is drawn from topic number 3, Form 2 work. Topic number 3 talks about communication. In the previous syllabus, we had the topic transport and communication put as 1. But in our current syllabus, after the changes in 2006, now they are divided into 2. That is, transport as a different topic, communication as a different topic. And therefore, this question talks about early form of communication. Early form of communication. We remember we have early means of communication or early form of communication and modern. So the early ones included fire/smoke signals. Number 2, use of messengers or the runners, people that were running on their feet to deliver different messages to different places. Number 3, written messages on scrolls or tablets or parchments. Number 4, we have drum beats, horn blowing, ululation or screams or cries, clicking of sounds or whistling. Then bells, we have flags, and we have gestures. This is a very, very interesting area to tackle, because I would now challenge you to please take your time and now look at what is this thing about fire, the use of fire and smoke signal. You'll of course draw out the advantages, disadvantages. The use of runners or messengers, advantages, disadvantages. And you move like that all through until you reach gestures. Now, let me highlight 1 or 2 things about point number 3. We have those early forms of writing, those early forms of written messages. We have scrolls, like for example, what we had the Old Testament prophets using to record the visions and the prophecies that God would give them to speak to the people. So scrolls, good. Then we have the tablets. The tablets here, we have 2 tablets, either the stone tablet or the clay tablets, stone tablets or clay tablets. Then we have parchments. What are parchments? Parchments are animal skins that are dried and used for purposes of writing messages or writing communication. And therefore, good people, those are some very, very key areas that is very, very important for you to take very keen note as you revise. Let's go to point number 6. Look at ululation. This was mainly meant during celebration times. Screams, maybe times of distress and cries. Clicking of sounds, of course, when you're dissatisfied, Then whistling, you could be doing it, during your pleasure, or, you are signaling somebody, things like that. So these are the early forms of communication. Take your time, read about them bit by bit, get the advantages, the disadvantages, because you never know, next time your examiner may be able to ask you to give maybe a disadvantage or disadvantages of these early forms of communication. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, good people, allow me to stop at that point, and then in my next presentation, we begin from question number 8, paper 1, paper 2, section A, KCSE 2022. Thank you. Stay tuned.